Britain in the 1950s was a nation rebuilding itself after war. Families dreamed of freedom, and for the first time, owning a motorcar felt possible for ordinary people. Showrooms filled with hopeful buyers, but behind the polished chrome and optimistic advertising, many of these cars were deeply disappointing. Some were painfully slow, some rusted almost immediately, and others were simply unsafe. Today on Britain Rewind, we're counting down 10 of the worst British family cars of the 1950s, and by the time we reach number 1, you'll understand just how desperate post-war motoring could really become. Number 10. Morris Oxford Series MO. When Morris launched the Oxford Series MO in 1948, it looked like exactly what Britain needed, a sensible family saloon for a country trying to move forward again. The brochures promised comfort, reliability, and modern motoring for ordinary households, but the reality quickly disappointed buyers. The 1,476 cubic centimeters side valve engine produced only 41 horsepower, and once a family loaded luggage into the boot, the car felt painfully sluggish. Hills became exhausting battles. The gearbox felt vague and awkward, while road noise flooded the cabin at even modest speeds. On rainy British roads, rust appeared alarmingly fast around the sills and wheel arches, shocking owners who had saved for years to afford one. For many families, the Oxford wasn't freedom. It was frustration wrapped in polished metal. Number 9. Austin A40 Somerset. The Austin A40 Somerset arrived in 1952 looking modern and optimistic, at least by British standards. Austin clearly wanted buyers to see it as stylish and forward-thinking, with rounded bodywork inspired by American trends. Showrooms were full of curious families imagining a brighter future, but beneath the shape was a deeply flawed machine. The tiny 1.2-liter engine struggled badly once passengers climbed aboard. Long-distance journeys became painfully slow, especially on inclines. Build quality was inconsistent from the beginning, with doors misaligned straight from the factory and trim pieces rattling loose almost immediately. And then there was the heating system, or rather the lack of one. British winters inside the Somerset could feel absolutely miserable. Families reportedly drove wearing coats and gloves because the cabin never properly warmed up. Rust attacked the bodywork relentlessly, particularly around the sills and rear arches. Buyers expected dependable family transport. What they got felt unfinished and fragile. Number 8. Hillman Minx. During the early 1950s, the Hillman Minx became one of Britain's most common family cars. Roots Group marketed it as practical, affordable transport for hard-working households. Thousands trusted that promise. Many regretted it later. The 1,265 cubic centimeters engine delivered weak, uninspiring performance that struggled under even moderate weight. A fully loaded Minx climbing a hill felt almost hopelessly slow. The column-mounted gear lever frustrated owners constantly, while the ride quality over Britain's rough roads ranged from uncomfortable to outright punishing. Inside, the cabin felt gloomy and cheap. The heater barely functioned, and road noise made conversations difficult on longer journeys. Rust spread predictably across wheel arches, sills, and the boot lid, eating away at the thin steel year after year. The Minx wasn't catastrophic in one dramatic way. It was simply exhausting to live with every single day. Number 7. Standard Vanguard Phase 1. When Standard introduced the Vanguard in 1948, it carried genuine ambition. The styling looked bold and American-inspired, making it stand out immediately on British roads. Families saw it as modern and exciting compared to many dull post-war rivals. Unfortunately, the engineering failed to support that ambition. The 2.1-liter engine had a serious tendency to overheat, especially during long journeys. Cooling failures became common enough that many owners expected trouble before setting off. On holiday trips, the steering was heavy, particularly around town, and the old-fashioned 3-speed gearbox felt clumsy and outdated. Fuel consumption was poor for working families already struggling financially in post-war Britain. Rust formed steadily around the rear wings and door bottoms, creating repair costs many owners simply couldn't afford. The Vanguard looked confident from a distance. Living with it was another story entirely. Number 6. Singer SM1500. Singer wanted the SM1500 to feel premium. Introduced in 1948, it wore elegant styling and carried a badge associated with refinement and sophistication. Families who couldn't quite stretch to a Jaguar or Rover often convinced themselves the Singer would offer something close. What they actually received was an expensive headache. The technically ambitious twin-cam engine required constant maintenance, and repairs cost far more than owners expected. Mechanical breakdowns became common, particularly among families using the car daily. The gearbox was fragile, electrical problems arrived frequently, and rust appeared aggressively throughout the body. Families who stretched their savings to buy the Singer often discovered they couldn't afford to keep it running properly afterward. The SM1500 promised prestige. Too often, it delivered financial regret instead. Standard. Number 5. Standard 8. By 1953, Britain desperately needed affordable family transport, and Standard responded with the Standard 8. It was marketed as basic but dependable motoring for working-class households trying to improve their lives after years of hardship. Basic turned out to be an understatement. The tiny 803 cubic centimeters engine produced just 26 horsepower, making the car painfully underpowered. Overtaking required courage, patience, and a completely empty road ahead. The lack of equipment bordered on absurd. No heater as standard, no opening rear windows, no external boot lid. Families had to access luggage through the rear seats. Interior noise was overwhelming once speeds climbed above 30 miles per hour, and the harsh suspension made every pothole feel personal. The Standard 8 wasn't transport built with pride. It felt more like transport built with surrender. Number 4. Austin A30. The Austin A30 arrived in 1951 as small, affordable transport for Britain's growing suburban families. It looked friendly and modest, exactly the kind of honest little car people wanted to trust. But the reality quickly exposed its limitations. The tiny A-series engine produced just 28 horsepower, which became completely inadequate once children, luggage, and shopping filled the cabin. Long journeys were slow and exhausting. The interior was cramped even by 1950 standards. Heating remained poor, while rust attacked the wheel arches and floor panels aggressively after only a few years. Families taking summer holidays in the A30 often discovered how physically uncomfortable the experience became after only an hour or two on the road. For many owners, the A30 represented compromise in its purest form. Number 3. Jowett Javelin. At first glance, the Jowett Javelin seemed brilliant. Introduced in 1947, it looked futuristic compared to most British family saloons. The streamlined body, flat-4 engine, and advanced suspension impressed journalists immediately. Families believed they were buying a glimpse of the future. Then the failures started. The flat-4 engine suffered catastrophic reliability problems, with big end bearing failures destroying engines suddenly and without warning. Cooling issues appeared regularly, while transmissions proved equally fragile. Repair costs mounted so rapidly that they contributed directly to the collapse of Jowett itself. By 1954, the company had stopped producing cars entirely. Imagine buying what seemed like one of Britain's most progressive family vehicles, only for the manufacturer to disappear completely a few years later. The Javelin remains one of the great tragedies of British motoring history. Number 2. Ford Popular 103e. The Ford Popular 103e earned its name honestly. It was one of the cheapest cars available in Britain during the 1950s, and for struggling families, affordability mattered more than comfort. But the level of austerity inside this car was almost unbelievable. The design already looked outdated when launched. The ancient side valve engine delivered painfully slow performance, while the equipment list felt shockingly bare even for the time. No heater, no indicators, no sun visor. The brakes offered frighteningly weak stopping power, especially in wet weather. Families endured freezing winters inside a car that felt less like modern transport and more like pre-war survival. The Popular succeeded because Britain needed cheap mobility, not because anyone genuinely loved driving it. Number 1. Bond minicar. And now we reach number 1, the Bond minicar. Nothing else on this list truly compares. Introduced in 1949, this tiny three-wheeled machine was marketed as affordable family transport during one of Britain's hardest economic periods. Early versions didn't even have reverse gear. If drivers needed to reverse, they had to climb out into the rain and physically lift the front wheel themselves. Imagine doing that with your family watching from inside the car. The single front wheel created dangerously unstable handling, especially on wet British roads. The bodywork felt fragile, the tiny motorcycle engine vibrated constantly, and the ride quality bordered on punishment. Noise filled the cabin endlessly. Long journeys became miserable endurance tests, and yet thousands were sold, because many families simply had no better option. The Bond minicar wasn't just a bad family car. It was a symbol of how desperate post-war British motoring could sometimes become. Looking back today, these cars tell a complicated story about Britain in the 1950s. This was a nation rebuilding itself, trying desperately to create affordable transport for ordinary people despite enormous economic pressure and industrial limitations. The ambition was real. Unfortunately, so were the failures. Some of these cars disappointed through poor engineering. Others failed because corners were cut too aggressively. But the families who trusted them deserved better than what they received. If you remember seeing any of these cars on British roads, let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoy cinematic British motoring history, subscribe to Britain Rewind for more stories from the roads that shaped Britain. Until next time.